this bit here is the best feeling you just ever have on a cricket field. You're just running around, just all your dreams have come true, and just pure elation and emotion. If I could relive anything again, it would be that 20-30 seconds just after we took the bails off.
We had Steve Smith, we've had interviewed recently, actually. And I mean, he's a bit of a sort of exception, I suppose, or a bizarre case. But he says that, he falls asleep at night or tries to fall asleep at night. And he's still thinking about how am I going to get runs against Stuart Broad with a gully and 2 slips and a short extra cover and, a couple of people on the leg side. So he's going to sleep, still visualising how to make runs. Were you like that in the middle of series and in the middle of matches?
Like I would have said Steve Smith does it or seems to do it every night.
Yeah,
that's what I would like. I think he's that engrossed in it, and so
that's true.
And you can, and actually that's probably why he's probably one of the world's best batsmen, isn't he? Or if not there, Kohli, you'd say in terms of that. That's just a different level. Obviously, during a series, when you're in that high performance mode, of course, whether I'd be going to sleep thinking totally about it, but it's not very far away from your mind very often. It's great when you do get that escapism when you are just talking with the lads and over a beer and going out for dinner, whatever. But there's always, when you're in such a big series, the back of your mind's always there. And I think that's why this summer would have been quite tough as a player, and those bubbles, because you just don't get that little escapism for that couple of hours at the end of the night. Just to try and forget about what's going to happen the next day, because it is it's an intense environment. It's an amazing environment. It's never, everyone always talks about how intense and the bad stuff about it, but it is what it is. But in that social bubble, that would have been quite hard just to get those couple of hours when your brain not working. But someone like Steve Smith, he seems like he needs his brain to work, and I don't think he sleeps much, even though he owns a mattress company, doesn't he? I think, which is doing very well, which is ironic when he doesn't sleep.
Simon, can you fathom it?
Well, it's one of those things where it sort of feels like a good idea, to try to make every test worth something, to have a test championship. But because of the fact that basically some countries can only play 2 test matches because of their financial situations, and England and Australia want to play the Ashes and they want to play India over 4 test matches, 5 test matches. That's why there's this sort of confusing points system. I hear the new chairman of the ICC said it needs a real looking at, and whether it'll continue or whether it'll continue in its present form remains to be seen after this summer. But I mean, they still think the final's going to go ahead this summer in England at Lord's in the middle of the summer.
They do, yeah. And so as a result of that sort of duel at the top of the table there, if Australia win this series, there is talk that India will then have to win most of their remaining test matches to be in contention for that final, which means, of course, when they play England in February, March, they'll probably produce raging turners. Is that the chat amongst the England players? And are you playing? I mean, we've heard from sort of talking to Brody and people like that when you play at Loughborough in the tent, that you're playing on sort of practicing on specially dried out pitches.
Yeah, I think as much as they can, they've tried to make the pitches be relevant. Certainly is spinning. I wouldn't say it's like a dry dust bowl. It's more of a wet
dust bowl. That's even worse.
But it's like a real soft wicket that spins. Really, it's going to be so hard to recreate that. But it's fantastic for us to be able to practice on grass wickets in December, but I think turning up to a place like Sri Lanka and India, it's really about reacting to what you get. I know certain times the pitches can be very flat, especially in the first half of the games, or like you say, they can produce wickets that sort of turn from ball one. Look at the series last time in Sri Lanka, it's been dominated and seam barely played a part. But I think in India, especially now, they have a real battery of strong Indian pace bowlers as well. I think they fancy themselves on most surfaces.
Ruti wanted us to go out on the wicket and just have a drink to sort of take it all in, and then he no, not him, but someone convinced me that I needed to do a sort of like repeat performance of like my single. So I did that. Someone filmed it, and somehow it got out, and I was just mortified, and I was so embarrassed. But luckily, it went down okay. But,
so you sort of did your little nerdle off the hip,
yeah,
and sort of set off for the run in the dressing room or somewhere in a hotel or somewhere.
No, it was nice. It was on the wicket, and it was kind of reminding me of club cricket days where you kind of sit out on the boundary afterwards and have a drink. And Rooty wanted to go out and just sort of savour the moment and say that this is going to be one of the greatest Test matches ever. So it was mad times, and then got a McDonald's drive-through on the way home, so that's perfect.
McDonald's drive-through. That's God. That's the lowest common denominator.
12 o'clock curfew, so that's what we had to do.
Tell us what happened when you arrived in Australia. It isn't just sort of stamp your passport, pick up your luggage, and off you go, and out into the wilds there. What was the situation?
Yeah, I mean, I guess this year has thrown up new sort of circumstances, and the best way of dealing with it is to you've almost just got to be prepared for anything, haven't you? Otherwise, it does become a bit too much. But in the week build up to actually flying, we still didn't know if we were coming out to Australia. So packed our bags, we were on the way to the airport, got a call from Australia saying visa hadn't been approved, turned around, went back home, had our bags in the living room, and we were sitting around for 3 or 4 days just waiting to see if it was going to happen or not. We were prepared for every eventuality, which was we both weren't going to be able to go. We both were going to be able to come to Australia, or I was going to be able to come and Rich wasn't. So we are unbelievably thankful. It's been so difficult for even a lot of Australians to get back into their country. So just to be able to get here was amazing. The actual flight was an experience. You have to wear your mask the whole time.
God, that must have been
but to be honest, everything was run really smoothly up until the time we got to Australia, whereby it is just potluck as to which hotel you're put in. So at the same time in Perth, Shane Warne was quarantining and Mike Hussey. So I was messaging them to get advice on what to expect. We heard horror stories on the bus to the hotel about how, at the start of lockdown, people were escaping by tying bed sheets together. So literally from that point on in Perth, no one had a balcony. So we were, again, just preparing ourselves for the fact that there would be no fresh air in the room. And yeah, you're basically in a room together, not allowed to leave. We handled it okay in the fact that we got into a bit of a routine. I had loads of calls to make back home in the evenings and stuff like that. We did a bit of exercise in the mornings, and I mean, me and Rich are never short of things to do. There's always something for us to do. And actually, we're probably the latest ever people to Harry Potter. So we completed Harry Potter in quarantine.
And you mentioned about off-spin bowling. You've got a ball there, haven't you? So I mean, I often used to talk to you about this, and you sort of tried to explain it. The ability you have to make the ball some turn and some look as if they're going to turn, but because of the slightly different grip, they tend to just hit the seam and go straight on. Can you demonstrate that?
Yeah, I had a cricket ball here somewhere.
Lost it now.
I'll find it again. Dog took it. Hang on, wait there. From my right. So this ball, this is off my shelf. This one is
Sri Lanka.
I write where I've got them from and why I've stolen them at the end of a game. So this one is Sri Lanka at Cardiff. I got 4 for 16 off 7. When we bowled them out for about 40, I nicked the ball at the end. So basically the off spinner. So English off spinners are supposed to hold it like this between those two knuckles. That is absolute codswallop. If it doesn't work, you'll never be a decent Test bowler if you do that. You should hold it between the first knuckle there and then this back one. That's what I always did, and really flick it. That's where you get a lot of revolutions. And so when you're bowling a normal off feet, you go over the top, and when you're bowling one you want to go straight on, right at the last minute, you go underneath. And so the ball will literally go down. I used to call it a flying saucer ball, and it will wobble on the way down, sometimes hit the seam and turn. Most of the time, go straight on. And it was a very powerful weapon to left-handed batsmen. especially Marcus North.
How easy is it to pick that up as a batsman? That you obviously, that sleight of hand right at the last second. I mean, you must have faced lots of spin bowlers in your time, and you knew what you were trying to do. So presumably you were thinking about what they were trying to do. How easy or difficult is it as a batsman to pick up that sleight of hand at the last second?
Seemingly it's quite hard. I got taught that by Ashley Mallet, Australian coach. No one in England had ever taught me that. No one in England who I spoke to afterwards knew about that ball. He called it a square spinner. Said it would be really useful when you're playing Australia, and he was dead right. No one I've seen since, I haven't seen any young lads who try and bowl it who understand how to bowl it. It's a very simple ball to bowl once you're used to it, if your action suits it. So for me, my action suited the ball, found it very simple to bowl. And it is quite seemingly very hard to pick. I knew it was hard to pick because Mike Hussey, when he was at Northampton, when I used in the nets, he used to come out saying, "Mate, there's that one ball you bowl. I always think it's an arm ball, but sometimes it turns. How are you doing it?" And so I didn't tell him. I made something up and pretended it was all fluke because I thought I might play against him in the Ashes one day.
The game which stands out would be the 2014 Sri Lanka game at Headingley in terms of a tactic where, they were, I mean, I can't remember the scores, but I remember them being level 7 down with Harath and Angelo Matthews in at the crease. And we went to that. The theory was we went to try and starve Matthews of the strike, Harath, try and bowl as many balls as you can at Harath. And so basically have everyone on the boundary to Matthews. And so if he plays like 4 balls, then bring him in and then, try, do you know what I mean? So but be really clear on that. And that's what we tried to do. And actually the first couple of overs worked really well. And I remember it today. He played a massive whooshka, the last ball of an over, trying to hit that boundary because everyone was up. I think it's off Chris Jordan. It might not have been, but it fell just short of second slip. I'm talking inches short of second slip. So, for three or 4 overs, that build of that tactic worked. But then 3.5 hours later, it didn't work on Harath and Matthews. So actually not changing that tactic was probably my worst thing. I think Shane Warne described it as the worst captain he'd ever seen. But that was obviously a mistake. But it shows what fine margin sport is, because if that capture carried, you can say about lots of things, ifs, woulds, and all that kind of stuff. But if that catcher carried, it was a justifiable technique, but a tactic. But I should have changed it. So I would like to change that thing. But then we wouldn't have had Moeen's brilliant 100 and kind of the drama of the second to last ball of Jimmy Anderson's. But
do you almost feel like I'd just like to escape for a little bit, because your triple format, you're going out on the 2nd of January to play in the Sri Lanka tests. I mean, there's no respite.
No, and I think one thing that cricket has become a bit more 24/7. I think with the lockdown stuff. So just being able to escape the hotel and go for dinner or go for a walk and get out and really escape. I think especially in England, just gone. Staying on the ground as well. Certainly. Made that escape a lot harder, and that's something I've always enjoyed. I enjoyed the time away from the game as well, and like to turn up to games full of energy and fresh and excited to play. And so that's sort of been a bit harder to sort of leave the ground behind, especially in England. But as much as it is different. It's different for everyone, and you just want to play and be a part of these things. It's fantastic. In the IPL, Rajasthan looked after us brilliantly, and I could have my family there with me the whole time, which made a huge difference. And I think everyone's just sort of working their way through it. I think one thing the ECB has been really good about is player welfare, and I think they're very aware of mental health and trying to look after people and try and catch things early, as opposed to sort of leaving it too late for someone to then say, I'm really burnt out and I can't hack it in this environment. No, I think they've been really good at that and quite forward thinking, especially with this year coming up. There's a hell of a lot of cricket, and like you say, multi-format guys, your Ben Stokes, Jofra Archers, you have to be really careful how you manage them.
And what about you, Sophie? What's your career highlight so far?
I think I've had a few, but I think it'll be my Test debut in Australia. I think my mum and dad were there. They were first time in Australia, and I think it was my first Ashes tour, first big tour away from home, and I made my Ashes debut. So I think it was quite a big thing for me, and to play my first Ashes was quite an experience, really.
Do you want to play more Test cricket? Because you've only played 2 Tests, haven't you?
Yeah, it's something I really look forward to. I think it's such a change, like Red Bull cricket, get your whites on. I think it's something we'd all love to play more of. I think playing that 1 Test match every 2 years is not enough. I think it'd be great to play some more, but I'm not sure. But in the future, I reckon it'll be a big thing for us.
In which form of the game do you think you're the most effective then? Long form red ball, ODIs, T20? I know you're world T20 #1 bowler, but what do you think your game is most suited to?
Yeah, T20 definitely. I'm working on my ODI ball at the moment because I'm really bad because I get really impatient after bowling the same ball for a while. That's a big thing that I'm working on. I get a bit impatient and I try and change something. So definitely T20 because I'm always in a battle. You're always in a battle when you come on, but in the ODI, I think I've got a bit of work to do.
One thing you said earlier, Isha, you loved the battle when you were bowling. So what sort of bowler were you in terms of your temperament? Were you chatting away at the batsman? Were you sledging the batsman? What was it like playing against the Australians? Is it all nice out there, or is it actually pretty gritty out on the field?
No, definitely gritty. Definitely. I mean, the women kind of ran parallel with the men in terms of the Australian women dominated for a good decade while them ended as well. So when I first came into the team in 2002, a lot of the senior players had baggage of playing against Australia. Like rarely ever did we beat them. In fact, we never beat them. In 2005, that was a really significant moment. It was the first time we beat them in a 1-day international for 10 years. And the first time we beat them in a test series for 43 years or something like that. So it was, playing against Australia was always quite a daunting prospect. But a few of us youngsters coming into the team, myself, Catherine, Lydia, we didn't have that baggage. And so for us, it was just any game. And we just wanted to play against the best and be able to perform against the best. So that sort of battle I talk about in the middle, it was more actually with myself. I would kind of berate myself if I didn't bowl as well as I could, but that would kind of gee myself up to kind of bowl better. And I could never really, I wasn't good at sledging just because
Too nice.
I just didn't want it to backfire on me. I was just not very good at that.
What was the worst thing you said on the field? What was the worst thing you said on the field? Is there a moment where you thought, oh, why did I say that? Or is that me?
Can you call an opposition player a bitch on the field?
Yeah, you probably could, but not that I have said it directly to anyone. No.
So the follow-up question, Graeme, is about your approach as a bowler between the first and second innings. Whereas the first innings, you always seem to be got to keep it tight to rotate the quicks from the other end. So in the second innings, perhaps being a bit more aggressive, a bit more positive in trying to take wickets and win the match. I wonder how you approach that different mindset.
Well, I used to very, very much in the head my whole game. So I used to try and take the pressure off myself at all times. So turning up to a day one of a test match, I would be thinking, there's no pressure on me whatsoever. I've not got to open the bowling. If we're batting, I'm number 8. That's fine. I can sit my feet up for 2 hours at least. If we're bowling, I've got to bowl what? An over before lunch, because we're English, and spinner always has one over before lunch, even though it never gets a wicket. I've got to bowl 6 overs before tea, and then possibly 12 till the new ball, maybe 4. So maybe 20 overs in the whole day. There's no pressure on me whatsoever. I'll pick up 1 or 2 wickets because, I'm bowling that many overs. And if I go for 50 runs, I've done my job. So straight away, I was just convincing myself that I had the easiest job in the world. And that made it a lot easier for me. Rather than thinking, oh my God, I'm the only spinner, I can't let the seamers down, I've got to keep trying on the ball. And I'd try and go about and try and have a body language that was as blasé, laissez-faire as I could. Even if in my head I was thinking, Christ, this wicket's good, or we've got our work cut out. And then in the second innings, I would do the exact opposite. I would say, the wicket is doing everything for me now. So the ball's turning, there's footholes. The pressure's supposed to be on me to win the game. Brilliant. I love that. I want to be man of the match. So bring it on. That's all I want. I want to be the man. I want to be famous. I want to take more wickets than Jimmy Anderson. I'm much better looking than him, so I want more wickets than him as well. Stuff like that. Even though it's complete cod shit, I would convince myself that this was going to happen. And that took, again, I found that took the pressure off me all the time.
It must have been nice actually to have those two partnerships as well, because it's so important, isn't it? Apart from being able to resist yourself, is building those partnerships with people. What's that like?
Well, what amazing about a big partnership is just how quickly it goes. You know, like when you suddenly, time just flies by, and suddenly, you know, you suddenly see a 50 partnership, and when you both in that kind of rhythm and moment, like suddenly, there's 100, 150, you just don't notice it. It just like, I don't know what we put on 320 maybe on that?
Yeah, I think so.
Like that. I mean, Trotty and Strauss are very different to bat with. Strauss is very much more, you know, just chat and keep going, fella. Well, Trotty was very much, he loved batting in fives. Very like, if we were on say 83, it's like, let's get to 85, you hit a 4, then you're obviously an 87, come on, let's get to 90. And he does not stop that. That is what he does all the time. So even there, when we're 480 for one, he was like, let's get to 485. And amazing rigidness and determination to do it. But that last 45 minutes of batting together, I mean, if you carried on, I even come down the wicket and hit over the top and stuff.
I have got that. I thought the ball.
But that was that. I mean, that's
the trouble is. The trouble about a highlights innings of yours is there's only 3 shots in it.
Oh, thanks, Simon.
Yeah, I mean, you get the incredible positions you get into. That is a 96 mile an hour delivery, which you're facing front on. I mean, what's the process there? I mean, firstly, it's premeditated, presumably.
Yeah, absolutely premeditated. And I don't know, it's obviously a culmination of years of practice and trust. And as simple as you can make the game really is to try and hit the ball where the fielders aren't. And he had fine leg in the circle. And with his pace, you know, someone who, you know, you look at the way he bowls, he's quite a skiddy, fast bowler, generally bowls quite full, which is sort of obviously bowling extra fast here. But yeah, his style of ball I thought he was going to bowl is well suited to the shot. So it's just sort of, you know, I wasn't aware of how fast he was bowling really. You just sort of know it's rapid, and but it suits the shot, and it made sense at the time to play the shot. So that's sort of the thought process that goes into it.
Are there any rules, and this is from Noughts again, are there any rules that stop Sophie playing with a male county side? If you have the skills, surely that's enough. What's the story there? I mean, I honestly think that you could play county cricket. I think you bowl just about fast enough.
I get so many comments saying, why don't you play men's cricket? So many. And
what's your view?
I mean, I'd love to. Like, I genuinely would love to. Like, it'd be so good. I'm not being an idiot, but I just feel like I could hold my own. I feel like some of the girls could.
What do you think, Jack? I mean, not specifically about Sophie, but what do you think about a woman playing in county cricket?
I don't want Sophie to come to Somerset. That's all I know. But because I won't have a place. But
you could have two. You could have 2 spinners. That Bunsen, you could have, but you could both be operating.
Yeah.
But she wouldn't understand anybody.
If there's, I don't know about the rules or anything, but I think that would be great. I didn't see any reason why it shouldn't happen. But yeah, I don't know whether it's possible or not.
The only thing I would think of is obviously like when the boys would bowl, if the boys would bowl at us, like we're not used to 90 miles an hour at our heads.
Yeah.
But you could get used to it though. I mean, you know, it's just practice, isn't it?
Yeah,
I wasn't, but neither Jack or I are all that good at 90 mile an hour out of our heads. We have to deal with it.
That's true. I don't like it at all.
Do you not at all?
No.
Do you think it's like really quick?
Yeah, definitely think it's quick, but you just have to try and it's horrible. Like, and I think. But obviously I bat down the order, so I'm not facing it all the time. So I feel like when you're in, you're just kind of trying to stay out there for as long as possible. But there's ways of definitely making it feel slower as well. I think if you get once you get over the kind of anxiety, I guess, of it's quick, and actually, because to start with, your body wants to move before the ball's been released to try and help you play it better. But actually, that's the worst thing you can do. You need to just stay still and wait for it. And once I kind of worked that out, I found it a lot easier.
How do you do highlights successfully? Because that actually is quite a skill as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and that was actually the first time that I'd done it. So the method that I went with was just normal commentary, so I could be in the moment when something happened. And then as the summer wore on, I kind of got used to just commentating for a significant moment. But I also realized that is different as well in terms of my voice. So almost for highlights, you need to be more excitable, because only a small amount is going to go into the highlights clip. And when you're watching a highlight show back, you want it to have energy and not be like it's just come out of a long day's play. So that was something that I picked up from the summer. And yeah, just being prepared that you might not, nothing you say might go to air that night because
whole day wasted.
There was a great line. Ian Smith had a great line once we were watching a Channel 4 highlights show, and at the end of the show, Ian Smith and Michael Atton were having a beer, and Athers said, "I'm a bit disappointed." He said, "None of my commentary got into the highlights." And Smithy said, "None of your batting ever got into the highlights either." Has becoming being the England spinner now become like being the England Test wicketkeeper, i.e., you must be able to bat? So a Tufnor or a Panesar, if available today, and I suppose Jack Leach might fit that category a bit, wouldn't necessarily fit into a team. Do you agree?
No, I think probably that is what they think when they're picking a team. But what England failed to realise is that the spinner is a bona fide and very important part of being a number one team in the world. If you're going to win Test matches and get up and win that Test championship and win overseas, you can't treat your spinner as a luxury who you don't play in Test matches. Who I've seen 2 or 3 games where Joe Root has been expected to, he'll do the overs for the spinner. It's bollocks. While we're thinking like that, we'll get destroyed in India and Sri Lanka.
Although actually Joe Root could be quite a good spinner. I mean, he's got the natural skill, but perhaps not the application.
Because Joe Root is a brilliant sort of part-time spinner who can bowling spin as a your first and foremost skill in the Test team is not a part-time job. It's not something you do when you're not batting just because you're fielding. English cricket has to move way ahead, way beyond that way of thinking if we're ever going to move forward, either with spinners or batting against spinners. Because the very fact that you just said that, I'm not having to go at you, Jos, but the very fact that that's still prevalent in people's minds is absolute odd shit.
Yeah, and I suppose the evidence is very clear with, you've got Shane Warne, Anil Kumble and Murali, who are the 3 easily the leading 3 spinners in the world, and none of them would really have great pretensions as a batsman, would they? Although they made their runs, but they were specialist bowlers, and that's what they're in the team for every game.
Being able to bat down the order means if you score a 30, you've done a brilliant job, or a 40, incredible job. 30 or 40 means nothing if you're not taking 20 wickets in a series. I mean, if you're a good enough bowler to get 5 or 9 wickets in the game, the 30 runs you got, 40 runs you get mean nothing because you've completely outweighed them. And so rather than, we do pick spinners who'll get 2 or 3 wickets in the match and they're 30 odd runs and think that they're doing a good job. They're not. They're bit part players. We need to aim higher than that.
It's said that the focus and concentration you needed to practice when you were at school as a chorister, alongside regular school hours, has helped you with your batting.
Yeah.
Could you expand on that, please?
Yeah, I think it's pretty well documented. Apart from my farming, I was a choir boy when I was younger, from 8 to 13 at St Paul's Cathedral, and for me, the concentration things is used to being able to perform under pressure. From a very early age, I was put in services where, Monday to just on a regular week, I sang on service Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, one on Saturday and probably 2 on Sunday. That's 7 times a week you're performing in front of people. Yes, you're not performing on your own. You know, I was never that much of a soloist, but still performing. You can't make mistakes. And the standard was very high. So you're used to performing in front of people. And then on certain days you were performing on TV or you're at the Royal Albert Hall or whatever you're doing in massive occasions. But the music never changed, did it? The music is the same whether you're sitting, and the music doesn't change. It's I know it's very different to cricket, because obviously when you're batting, a lot of variables. Like if a bowler bowls an absolute jaffer, as we'll go back to Ryan Harris in 2013, you know, that ball, you know, I would never hit that ball 100 times. If people bowl that 100 times in a row, I'd get naught every single time. But obviously the music doesn't change, and there's no reason why you should make mistakes. So I was used to a very early age being able to just kind of almost ignore everything happening, whether there's 20 people in the service or 100, you know, 1,000 and on TV, and just being able to concentrate on reading the music and being able to sing. I suppose that goes to the cricket, doesn't it? Like every time I went up to the next level, or I was playing a club game, or then I went up to the next level under 18, then I played England 19, is irrelevant for me who was playing, who was watching. I had that ability to be able to focus on that ball. And I think that is what I meant by it. That's kind of what I meant by the thing, and just been doing it time and time again. You kind of, I'm not going to get me wrong. There was days where I didn't concentrate as well as I could have done, and the bloke on my shoulder or the occasion got better at me. But I kind of won that battle more times than I did.